Hello and welcome to 18 Hour Startup Central, India's only daily show dedicated to innovation, technology and entrepreneurship. We do have a power-packed show lined up for you. All the action from the coveted ET Startup Awards 2019.
We're going to begin the awards ceremony portion of the evening. Our first category of award is called Top Innovator. The winner, ladies and gentlemen, is Tricog. May I invite co-founder Charit Bhograj to come up and receive the award. The second award is called Best on Campus. The winner is Atomberg Technologies. May I invite the founder Manoj Kumar Meena to receive the award. Next award category is Bootstrap Champ. The winner is Fit and Glow Healthcare. May I invite Manish and Karan Chaudhary along with Ashwin and Arvind Sope. The next award category is called Comeback Kid. Kunal Rohit, may I have you on stage to receive the award. This brings us to the final award of the evening, the Economic Times Startup Awards 2019 Startup of the Year. May I invite CEO Sahil Barua to come up on stage and receive the award for being the ET Startup of the Year.
Well, it's only at the ET Startup Awards do you see top entrepreneurs, policymakers, technocrats all under one roof. And we do have a lot of these interesting voices lined up on the show ahead. First up, the theme at the Startup Awards this time was really solving for Bharat, solving for users beyond the 60 million internet users in cities, the tier 2, tier 3 markets. So what trends are really standing out? What are startups, businesses doing differently to really reach out to these markets and consumers? Let's listen in to this power-packed panel that had CEOs of top e-commerce players, Nandan Ninekani, technocrat, Aditya Ghosh and Piyush Bansal of Lenskart.
I'm going to start with Nandan. I know you were a little baffled why I wanted to start with you, but you're the foundation guy, you're the infrastructure person. You have really been the architect for building a lot of tools for digital inclusion, Nandan. Give us a sense of how something like Aadhaar, eKYC, now with a customer aggregator program, etc. How is all of this really translated into businesses benefiting from these railroads? And do you see a lot of it impacting and going into tier 2 and tier 3 and beyond?
Sure. I think all the infrastructure that has been laid out in the last decade, it's exactly 10 years, it started in July 2009, is all at population scale. So the idea is to reach 1 billion people. So it is actually for Bharat to make sure that each and every person in the country is in that system. And the first thing, of course, was identity. 1.2 billion people have the Aadhaar number, and that's a very important instrument of inclusion. But there's also the eKYC, which allowed you to open a bank account or get a mobile connection in 2 minutes. And that's been a very powerful tool. The country has done about 4 billion KYCs across all product lines, bank, telecom, and so on.
Right.
And then the DBT also has been a big part. The Aadhaar number linked to the bank account, there are about 600 million bank accounts. And that has had about 5 billion transactions cumulatively since government started. So I think all these are instruments to bring everybody into the system. But I think we have to recognize that there are very many different markets, and maybe we'll come to that later. For example, when the whole payment thing was happening, we were trying to visualize how do you get payments to 1 billion people. And we divided it into 3 markets. We said those who have smartphones, which may be 350 million people, those who have feature phones, which is maybe another 300 million people, and the rest who don't have any phones.
Right.
And our goal was to get payments to every one of them. And for the smartphone folks, we had the app story. And we have many people here, PhonePe, Paytm, Google Pay, Amazon Pay, WhatsApp Pay and so on. So that is served by those apps. Then we said we should also provide UPI on the feature phone so that those who have feature phones can make payments.
Right.
And for the people who have no phones, they had the Aadhaar enabled payment system where you go with your Aadhaar number and you can withdraw money from your bank account.
Sure.
Interestingly, the middle one never took off. So we have about maybe 100 million people using UPI on their smartphones. We have 100 million people using AEPS to withdraw money in a village, which is absolutely India 3. But the middle one didn't take off. So I think often when you think about it, what you think doesn't happen the way you think it happens.
Yeah.
But I think all these things that have happened, and I think Mr. Prasad is here, so. Good, sir. I think all these infrastructure over the last 10 years will make it easier for anyone who wants to take products to Bharat.
Right. We'll anyway address some of the issues that can be handled later on. But Kalyan, if you want to come in and talk a bit about how consumer behavior itself is very different when you look at India and what a lot of people call India 2 and Bharat, and how are you sort of adapting to it as a business? Because specific to e-commerce, a lot of the initial 50, 60 million consumers are already on board. The next big challenge is to get people to transact beyond that 60 million. So how are they different, and what are you doing about it to address that large population?
Sure, Samita. So let me just get into answering your question in 1 minute, but before that I'll also give some data to validate the discussion itself,
right.
the topic today. So when we look at our business today at Flipkart, 65 to 70% of our customers and transactions come from Bharat. So the real India, tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities. So at Flipkart, actually solving for Bharat is not a strategy, that is the business. And we have initiatives for, let's say, solving for the top 6 cities or top 8 cities, but 80 to 90% of the company's resources, financial resources, technology resources are already going towards solving for Bharat. Let me give you a couple of more data points and then I'll answer your question also. So the consumer e-commerce market in India today is roughly $23 billion in value. I think the only person who can disagree with that is Amit if he thinks it's a different number.
Is it? Do you think so? What are your numbers, Amit? You're not very fond of giving numbers, but...
Yeah, you know me very well.
Yeah. But we will still try.
Yeah. If he thinks it's less than, which means we are gaining market share. So I think it's, yeah. So it's going to be, it's a rare opportunity to sit next to Amit on one stage. So I thought I'll use that opportunity.
What's your comeback, Amit?
Yeah.
Are you losing market share?
As you know that we don't really obsess about competitors.
Yeah. So
Goodbye.
Yeah. So the 23 billion number now probably in 4 to 5 years becomes 75 billion. If you just look at the last 12 months, people who shop for products
Right.
on commerce marketplaces, maybe 100 million plus, and this probably becomes 300.
These are transacting users?
Transacting buyers for products on marketplaces, maybe 100 million plus in the last 12 months. This becomes about 300 million in the next 4 to 5 years. The incremental $50 billion of value and $200 million of users, 70% of those are going to come from tier 2, tier 3 cities. That's our estimate. So I'm agreeing with you on the topic to start with. So this is just validating the discussion itself. I think life depends on solving for Bharat. Now to answer your specific question. So there are two ways to look at it, or the way we look at this is in two ways. First of all, access, and second is affordability. Access, there is again two parts of access. One is digital access and second is physical access. Digital access is how do consumers access the app itself and what they see there. And it's changing dramatically, right? So just the size of the app itself, what it should have been before and what it should be today, for optimizing for the Indian user today, it's very different. Second is the way the content is served. It has moved from text to images, and we believe the future is video. And video means voice and speech in a pretty big way. The app talking to the user in voice and speech, the user talking to the app in voice and speech, and eventually an interactive experience. That's probably what's going to come in the next 1 year. And finally, I need 1 more minute if it's okay. So, and finally, payments, it's going to be very big from an access point of view. I think a huge amount of work is being done there. So that's on the digital access. On physical access, I think even today, we are reaching to the country. So Flipkart today reaches to 20,000 pin codes of the 23,000 pin codes, I think. So we are just getting there from a reach point of view. The future is going to be very different. How do you provide value-added services? Because Bharat is not a do-it-yourself market like the top 10 cities are. It's a do-it-for-me market, right? So you cannot just deliver a product. Actually, you have to service. You sell a television to a Bharat customer, you have to tell them how to use it if it's a smart TV. You have to install it for them. So that's the big part of access. And finally, affordability. How do you have a portfolio of products which, so let's say a foreign company is coming into India, brands, footwear brands, computer brands, phone brands. How do they use data to make products specifically for the target market? That's the biggest part of
So
affordability.
I'm going to get Amit on this, and we were having a chat before we came on stage. There is obviously the consumer side, which you want to address, and then, you know, your partners, your sellers. How do you kind of also tune your business that your sellers are also following, you know, that mission statement of getting deeper into markets? Because your selection, everything has to be very different, right? So how are your partners sort of aligning on that vision, which you have for India too?
Yeah, I think one of the really transformational things that are happening in our generation is that everybody is wired with mobile internet, right? So when you talk about the basic infrastructure, and on top of it, what Sir talked about, the payment infrastructure, all these are, in my opinion, the basic building blocks that if you think about now Bharat as a supplier or a manufacturer or a seller, you have millions of them now empowered to essentially reach out to consumers anywhere in the world. So the ability for the seller to reach out anywhere in the world requires some basics. So you can, you know, we used to have this program called Amazon Tatkal, which actually used to be a van that used to go to all remote parts of the country trying to sign up sellers to come and sell online. It is all about online education, trying to digitize their catalog. And then we expanded that to trying to get ecosystem around them. If you look at photographers, labelers, there are all these ecosystems. There are also entrepreneurs who, if you give them the right tools, they will help these suppliers, if you may, to come and sell. So I think there are all these basic building blocks. Then you actually need a little more sophisticated programs, and I can talk about one program like global selling. I just happened to find so many people who came and said thank you because they build their brands on top of that product that allows them to sell anywhere in the world. Wow was one example, that inspirational story. So if you just remove all the friction, customs, clearance, logistics, the amount of innovation that can actually go abroad and in exports is a big part of enabling this Bharat, of the manufacturing in Bharat. I think if you focus on the basics, you have very dedicated programs. Another program that we are very excited about is the aggregator program, where you can get the artisans and the women entrepreneurs on Amazon. We have stories about lost arts, and these are the transformations of Bharat make sense if it really changes people's lives. Otherwise, it's just a transaction.
Right.
So we are seeing those transformations happen. And I think just investing in the basics, trying to teach people how to do it, and then building these specialized programs that allow them to actually get a lever, in some sense a multiplier, using online commerce on top of this fundamental building blocks, in my view is where
So I'm going to get Aditya and Piyush on the omni-channel and the physical part, which seems to be one of the other three themes that we've been tracking. A lot of the very pure digital businesses are now seeing a lot of convergence with physical. Oyo actually started as a digital marketplace aggregating budget hotels, but over the last 2 years, it's more a real estate player, leasing properties, etc. I mean, and you've done it at scale. You know, you've seen in tier 3, tier 4, and beyond. What have you seen, and what is the reason for this change to have happened? Is it to get scale and to reach those markets, those deep sort of corners of the country?
Yeah, I mean, you know, first of all, Oyo is a full stack hotel company. You know, Nandan was asking me, so what's the difference between you and Hilton? I said, we're just a little bit larger. But
Valuation also.
But you weren't always
that's
that
right.
way. Yeah.
So I think the decision that we had to make was who keeps control over or influence over the experience that the customer is going through. And we decided that we needed to be in control of what the customers are experiencing, and then build a business around it. Especially in the context of what you're talking about, in say November, December last year, which is only about 8 months back, we were in 280 cities in India, operating hotels in 280 cities in India. 8 months later, we are in almost 600 cities in India. That means that we went in, we found the hotels, we found the properties, we transformed those properties, brought them up to the standards, put you know, operational folks there, started running the operations and revenue management and so on and so forth. Now the way we are able to therefore at this scale and at this speed, I am able to solve for the consumer, I am able to solve for my own operational teams, as well as my franchise partners or asset partners. This would not have been possible without a huge tech play, right? Because the way we kind of think about it is we are in a space where 3 spheres are intersecting. One is consumer technologies, the second is real estate, like you said, and the third is machine learning. So that at great speed and at even larger scale, we are able to come back and offer a very consistent experience in an omni-channel way across, like, you know, out of these 580 cities or so that we are in India today, where we are running our hotels, what, 15, 20, 30, 50 of them, less than 10% of them are so-called metro tier 1 cities. So this would not have been possible without completely, you know, reinventing the business, thinking of the business in a completely different way.
Piyush, you've always followed the omni-channel model. What really have you gauged from your experience? You're in smaller cities, you're also in larger cities with your stores. How has physical presence helped you, you know, target that audience, which a lot of digital businesses haven't been able to sort of get on board and get those consumers to transact? Has your physical model really helped you penetrate those markets?
Yeah, so I think, you know, I have never really thought about business as omni-channel or singular channel. I think we started with a very clear vision to give vision to India to, you know, because there are 600-700 million people who need spectacles and only 170 million of them wear spectacles. And as we got along that journey, that how do we give specs to, you know, even half of that 600 million, we realized that the only way to do it is to be omni-channel, right? I don't think we made that choice, you know, we made that choice along the way, but what I fundamentally believe in is that, you know, whether I look at India or I look at any global evolved economies now, whether it's China or US, every economy is divided into 3 parts, right? There are people who are not digitally influenced. There are people who are digitally influenced but not online shoppers. And there are people who are digitally influenced and online shoppers. And if you look at any market, the top bucket, which is the digitally, you know, influenced and the online shopper, is the smallest, and the B is the biggest, which is digitally influenced and not online shopper, and C is the largest, right? And as people are moving from B to A, people are moving from C to B. So if we want to go and give specs to 600 million people, then the only way to do that is, you know, there are 800 million people who have phones, maybe 350, 400 million have smartphones, but eventually a lot of these people will have smartphones. Second, what I figured out is that there are 3 things that are super crucial. At the end of the day, you know, if we build business to build a channel, you know, Lenskart is an online eyewear company, then the value proposition is very weak. So one is with technology, what you can do in 50 years, you can do in 5 years, right? And we have seen that. I mean, we are 7 years old now. We are going to ship 7 million specs this year, right? Which would be, you know, the largest optician in India would ship half of that, right? And it wouldn't have been possible without technology. Second, consumer experience is the bottom line, right? And good is not good enough anymore, right? The bar keeps changing every year, and any company which gets comfortable that this is the bar, you know, is the one which is suffering because. And third is the value proposition has to be stronger, which is you can't just be that I'm online and I can deliver 2 days earlier. At the end of the day, consumer is asking for, you know, why should I buy? Which is where, you know, the backward direct to consumer really helped us. Manufacturing, providing great quality spectacle. So omni-channel I feel is, is a way to get there. And I genuinely feel that if you're gonna spend $10, $20 acquiring a consumer, I don't see how the math works for you to ever become profitable. No offense, but eventually it has to get to a certain scale, and I know Amazon is moving into that route because our effective conversion on that traffic.
Amazon is moving into what, sorry?
Omni-channel, I believe.
Yeah,
in
but
US.
if you ask Amit, he would say no, we're not.
But what I'm saying is, if my online conversion pure is just 4%, my effective omni-channel conversion is 15% plus. And we transact some 25 spectacles per day per store, whereas the average for the country is 4. And that wouldn't have been possible, you know, so I think that's where it's just solving the problem.
Thank you gentlemen for an amazing, insightful session.
Welcome back to India Now Startup Central. As promised, we do have a lot more interesting interviews coming up. For me, clearly, the highlight and for all the entrepreneurs present at the awards was the presence of Cabinet Ministers Piyush Goyal and Ravi Shankar Prasad. In fact, they spent a lot of time post the event as well interacting with entrepreneurs. Let's dip into the conversation, the Ministers panel from the Startup Awards, where they reached out to startups, told them they're willing to help them in the war between food tech players and restaurants, and very crucial comments really coming in from Ravi Shankar Prasad on the data protection law. Listen in.
Good evening, ministers. Thank you very much for making it to Bangalore and being here with us while we celebrate really what is the most exciting aspect of India's economy, the startup economy. Thank you very much for being here again. It's also interesting that we're meeting in this what is really a propitious moment, I think, for this industry, the scrapping of angel tax. But Minister, I'm sure this audience, as much as the larger startup industry, definitely would want to say dil mange more. So I would invite you, sir, to make your opening remarks.
I truly believe that this is one ecosystem which is defining India across the world today. Over 21,000 startups are already registered with the Department of Promoting Indian Industry and Internal Trade. And the speed at which we are growing, my own sense is we'll be able to touch 50,000 by 2024 and probably be one of the world's largest ecosystems concerned with startups, recognizing them, promoting them. Hopefully less and less interventions and hopefully none. In fact, very often when we look at the IT industry, we often say the one reason why India flourished in that space was that they didn't have to go to government for almost anything at all. And I was jokingly telling my young friend there that it's music to my ears that you don't want any government intervention, which means I don't have to sit and have long meetings with the startup business anymore. Nirmala Sitharamanji has very recently, probably a few minutes ago, also clarified, which probably you have announced.
Yes, we've just made a reference to it, but she has actually
very categorically, you know, there was never an angel tax. It was a figment of imagination that either your industry started or some smart, super smart CAs, with due respect to my brother community, thought of, because it always helps to make a bill or two on angel tax on the startups, but there never ever was an angel tax. It's a figment of imagination. That tax has been there for years and years to stop, irrespective of which government, to stop shell companies who used to create capital out of nowhere. There used to be shell companies which issued shares to nondescript, unknown persons at very high premium. There was nothing in that company except an address. Very often you wouldn't even find that address. And that capital was going to fund illegitimately business and industry or whatever else. In all sense, that section 56, whatever it was only to curb that malpractice of creating capital falsely with no value in the company. And I think maybe one or two overzealous officers may have used that section to harass the startup companies which got into that problem. And then one thing led to the other, and this whole thing became almost virally went around the whole place as an angel tax. Nirmala ji has very categorically clarified that there will be no question of any harassment whatsoever. All of you are welcome to register with DPIIT. It's a very simplified format. I'm happy to even simplify it further. But absolutely you can rest assured and go back home very clear that there's no intention at all to have any such form of angel tax. But that section will be needed to ensure that the Hawala business and the money laundering that used to go on through these shell companies can still be curtailed. Nirmala ji has made a number of announcements on how we will ensure that even going down the levels to the income tax officers, to the GST officers, to the inspectors of labor law department, all of them will be brought under a much more transparent, non-discriminatory and equal opportunity for the assessee or the recipient to have his say and close issues in an expeditious manner. So very, very important announcements made by the Honorable FM today. And I do hope that will set at rest any of the concerns that any startups may have had relating to income tax. She's made a lot of assurances on GST refunds, which if any of you have any issues, you can now in a time-bound manner have resolution of the same. And a number of other announcements to give a stimulus to the economy, to give a boost to the business world, recognizing, as Prime Minister Modi said, wealth creators. And this is only the first of a series that you're going to hear from her in the coming few weeks.
I thought we could, finish with just some quick questions. This one to you, Minister Prasad. India is, of course, setting the standards, like Minister Goyal mentioned, and the world at large is also looking to us to see how are we going to deal with the issue of data protection, which is something that I think all eyes are turned towards you. If you could tell us quickly what your plans on this
Before
are.
that, only just one thing very briefly. One day, the Asia head of a big giant IT company came to me and he said, Mr. Minister, how your country is changing, I want to tell you. They are good paymasters. Earlier, when I used to go to IITs for toppers to come to my company, they used to come running to us. Now the topper says, sorry, we want to start a startup. We want to become job givers and not job seekers. That's the great India happening. And I'm very happy to see this change. Why startup is important? India's inner entrepreneurship was seeking opportunity. Technology gave that, political leadership gave that, and the rest is there. Now coming to data, it is a work in progress, okay? All the fine prints are complete, but we are seeking some clarification from some of the eminent people in the field. with whom we thought that last input should also be taken. Because it's the milestone. I had gone to Silicon Valley and I was told they're also awaiting our data protection law.
True.
India generates huge data. I don't want to repeat that data is the new oil. What is our ambition? India must become an important center of data analytics, data refinery, and also everything which goes with data. I can give you some general ideas. And my general idea is, we need to have a balance between data availability, data utility, data innovation, data anonymity, and data privacy. Okay? And most important, we need to have a clear understanding between personal data and impersonal data. Impersonal data must be available for general good. Personal data can also be available duly anonymized. I'm aware that some degree of movement is inherent in a data economy. But one thing is very clear, and let me make that statement using the platform of Economic Times. The government of Narendra Modi ji will never compromise on data sovereignty of India. That should be very clear. This message I want to convey loud and clear. India as a major player of the world, data sovereignty shall be maintained. The other things which I have conveyed, but I can tell you, we had a committee headed by Justice Shri Krishna, we have made a law, and once this data protection law comes about, it will be a very robust law, which I think all of you will be proud.
While we are, it's of course an upbeat mood today in the room, but it's also important to remember that the rest of India is really, I suppose, rest of Indian business is waiting for help to really get out of what is slower growth also. So there is talk of a stimulus across the world. I think America has also made some signs that they are working on this. What would you like to say, Minister Goyal, with regard to this? What can we reasonably expect by way of a stimulus?
See, I think you will certainly not hear from us the kind of stimulus that an earlier finance minister gave post the Lehman crisis, because to my mind that was disastrous and the country had to pay a heavy price for that. When fiscal deficits went up to 6.5%, inflation was in double digits, interest rates shot through the roof, current account deficit was extremely high. I mean, I don't think that stimulus, it made us feel that we are growing at 8 or 9% for 2 years. But the cost of that was damaged the economy so much that for 7 or 8 years after that, we have been just repairing the economy since then. That type of a stimulus, to my mind, is counterproductive, makes a few people look good, is an intervention that should not be done. And I hope nobody comes to us for that sort of intervention. Because at the end of the day, we are not here to run a fireside sale, or what's that, fire sale or whatever the e-commerce companies keep doing to try and increase their market share, whatever sale. So government is not in the business, okay, we reduce taxes on one commodity so that it sells in a short period. Somebody's going to buy a car, he'll buy it today or he'll buy it tomorrow. But if somebody's not going to buy a car, your giving a little sop on the GST is not going to make a difference. We'll have to be real about it.
Thank you very much for those very stirring words. I'm sure the house here is really interested to hear that you're open to listen to them and that dialogue is on. Thank you very much.
Were clear words from the Law Minister, Electronics IT Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad that we will not compromise on data sovereignty. Host of issues really covered. Moving on to the big exclusive voice on the show, e-commerce really is the buzzword. I caught up with Flipkart CEO Kalyan Krishnamurthy to understand the big bets that they are making right now and if there has been an impact of the economic slowdown as far as Flipkart's orders are concerned. Take a look.
The big focus area is what we are here for today. The focus on Bharat, the focus on tier 2, tier 3 cities. That's what Flipkart's focus is. Video is actually part of it. So if you just look at the way the consumer in India today is digitally accessing our app and the content in it, it's very different than the way he or she has been doing it before. So people have moved from text to images, images to video, and we believe video is here to stay. So video is going to be a very big focus for us in the next few years. Another very big focus for us is vernacular, rolling out in more languages. That's another customer preference we are adopting. We launched in Hindi just about a few weeks back. It's very early days. I think in the next 1 year, we'll continue rolling out to more and more languages.
So vernacular, video really in terms of focus area. Investments also, you'll see a lot of the investments going to these areas going ahead?
Yeah, I think the other very big thing we're doing is solving for affordability, which is assortment for tier 2, tier 3 cities. I'm not sure if you remember the platform Too Good.
Yes.
So we expanded the offering of Too Good to a long tail business as well. We launched with fashion and lifestyle there. So that's another big thing. It's affordable assortment. That's what we launched with Too Good. So that is going to be another very big focus for us. The concept of affordability in general.
Lastly, before I let you go, larger talks of an economic slowdown, consumption being hit, demand being hit. Are you seeing that pan out at Flipkart? You sort of have the pulse of the Indian shoppers and the discretionary spends that they make.
Actually, at a high level, no. Because Flipkart is a value platform. And actually, even if there is an economic slowdown in the country, people move towards value platforms. So we're not really seeing a slowdown from a customer and transactions point of view.
Well, what's an award show without all the winners across several categories? What do they feel like to have won that coveted award, which is really considered the Oscars of Startup Inc.? I caught up with winners across the categories to gauge their mood, their business plans, what keeps them going, and lessons from entrepreneurship. Let's listen in.
I think it's great. There's a lot of excitement about the fact that we've been recognized, and more importantly, I think when you look at the jury and the individuals who comprise it, and to be validated by them is a tremendous achievement, I feel, and obviously we're all very excited about it. Our customers have called us and congratulated us as well, and I feel like it's a great honor for the company and for us.
All right. Also, I think what sort of clinched it for you also, of course, you're sort of now where you're solving an India-specific problem, solving with technology at play. But talk to us about strong trends that you're really seeing, over the course of the 8.5 years that you've been in operation. Because you do have the pulse of Indians in terms of how goods move and how companies also really deal with it.
So I think there are three big secular trends that we're seeing. The first is that e-commerce is clearly here to stay. It is no longer consumers just buying for discounts, but they're buying because it is their preferred, convenient way of shopping. And apart from that, we're seeing large amounts of growth coming from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. And our belief is that as the internet becomes more local, vernacular as an example, as it takes off, we will see massive growth from these areas. The other big trend we're seeing is traditional brick and mortar businesses really starting to say, we need to harness the power of the internet. These are businesses which have traditionally been offline, relied on offline methods of distribution. And they're starting to discover that the digital economy is extremely powerful and they need to participate. And so most of our enterprise customers are asking us, hey, how do we become more digital first? And the third big trend that we're seeing is from the government. I think this GST has been a very welcome reform. We've seen that it's simplified logistics across the country. And the other piece is obviously improving infrastructure, whether it's airports, roads, recently seaways becoming a part of the government's plans. So I think that is the other big secular trend that we expect.
All right. You're of course well capitalized. So in terms of investing those funds, is it largely going to go into building that infrastructure? That's still a pain point, right? Over the last so many years that you're building it, the demand is there, but there is still that need to address the gaps in infrastructure.
So our big investments have been the same for 9 years and will probably be the same for the next 9 years as well. We will continue to build high quality, large scale infrastructure that India requires. That is in the form of trucking terminals, air terminals, fulfillment centers, delivery centers, trucks. And apart from that, we will be investing heavily in technology, in transport management systems, warehouse management systems, machine learning and artificial intelligence.
All right. Last couple of questions before I let you go. When Larger talks of an economic slowdown and all of that, are you seeing that really pan out in the space that you operate in? As I was indicating, you do have the pulse of really what's happening on the ground. Have you seen that sort of play out already? In what ways are you really seeing that play out?
I think there has been a certain amount of slowdown, yes, that is true. On the e-commerce side, you don't see it as much, largely because the market is still so nascent, and so there's a lot of headroom for growth. But in the traditional economy, yes, there is a slowdown. If you look at corporate earnings for the last quarter, they have been poor.
Yeah.
The truth is the world is a more uncertain place today than it was a couple of years ago. But our belief is that it's perhaps, or hopefully at least, it's cyclical. And our expectation is that as reforms, as an example, as infrastructure improves, as the effects of GST fully play out, things will start coming back.
I think being recognized for your work is always an amazing feeling. But the more it sinks in, the more really I realize how lucky I am to be doing what I do at this time in this country's development and working with the talented people that we get to work with every day. That really is a celebration for me.
We've been tracking, when we talk about a larger economic slowdown in the economy and things like that, that does not seem to have impacted the sentiment as far as the startup ecosystem is concerned, right? The money seems to be pouring. It's the best time to be an entrepreneur, considering all VCs continue to loosen their purse strings.
You can't exist in the startup industry as an investor and entrepreneur if you're not an optimist. So we are always glass half full.
As far as sectors that you're personally betting big on, I know Lightspeed has, focus areas, but some specific trends that you personally are betting big on. Is it the Bharat story? Is it solving for India, so to say, beyond the 60 million users, which was the theme of the award show as well?
Really, we don't invest in trends and we don't invest behind sectors, we invest behind people. And to me, that is the most powerful trend. The quality of talent, the quality of founders, the boldness, the provocativeness, the creativity, the dreams that they have, that's the trend that we're betting behind.
All right. And as far as the checklist also for investing in startups, entrepreneurs continues to be the same? You sort of back teams, back ideas, purely? For startups, entrepreneurs watching this and wanting to pitch to you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when you look at how early we've come into companies, that Lightspeed's come into companies like Oyo or Udan or ShareChat or IEX, it's all about the people. And companies are nothing but collections of talented people. So that's what we look for, and we continue to do the same thing that Lightspeed's done for the last 12 years.
You're as optimistic for the rest of the year going ahead also in terms of the pace of investments, really?
We don't think in 6-month time frames, that's too short. I think we're very optimistic for the next decade.
I think every company in every sector goes through its ups and downs, and so did we. I think what is most important though is that our team stuck together. Our 500,000 sellers on our marketplace stuck with us, and because of that we were able to come out of a tough spot and be in a stronger position now.
What really worked, was it employees that stood strong? What was that mantra that sort of kept the team together and ensured the focus is on business, building a profitable business and having that comeback?
So I think for us the most important thing, and which is very inspiring for both of us as well, is the perseverance, the focus and the dedication with which the entire team stuck together. It was a really difficult time for the company, but I think we ourselves got energized by how our team was so committed to making it happen, and I don't think it would have been possible if all of us were not in it together. So we were very inspired by that, both of us.
I know the comeback story, the blog is out, what Snapdeal has been doing, but in terms of focus areas, will it continue to be on driving the business profitably, that is, and ensuring that you grow the business in a sustainable manner?
Yeah, our goal is to make sure we are always profitable at a unit economics level and reinvest all our margins back into growth to drive future growth and user acquisition. We feel the market is very, very large, and there's tremendous opportunity for a business like ours that's catering to the tier 2, tier 3 market of India to drive growth for the next many years.
But fundraising on the plans anytime soon, or are you well capitalized and the focus is on the business?
We are fully well capitalized. We run the business very efficiently, even though it keeps growing very fast. So we have no such plan.
I know I have to let both of you go. Last question, Kunal. Your message to entrepreneurs building businesses, it's a tough task really, being an entrepreneur itself. It's a tough journey. What has worked for you and the message that you have for entrepreneurs?
I think the most important thing is have an ecosystem around you of people who like you, want you to be successful, and advise you whether you're doing well or you're going through a tough period. And most importantly, have persistence and the courage to continue, especially when things are tough.
I mean, the response has been immense. It's an incredibly heartwarming feeling to get an award and the recognition. I also think, while you can argue this, I feel like recognizing women is critical and it's an important problem to discuss.
Interesting. At Clay schools as well, you're sort of trying to build an ecosystem, help women get back to work. Of course, women are at the core of the problem that you're solving, maternity breaks or even otherwise. And let go of that guilt, you have a safe environment. What really has helped you expand the fact that there is no quality really out there, is what has really helped you expand over the last few years?
I think it's not just the fact that the quality is not there, it is that we understand a mother's problem and we're looking at it from a mom's point of view. But I think what most moms look for is something way better than what they can offer and they'll settle for equal. And we just work really hard at that problem, right? And in a changing day and age, the problem statement changes as well. So.
What are you really planning for the startup going ahead in terms of expansion? Is it the cities that you're already present in, and the response that you've seen from the community, the parent community itself?
So we work with a lot of corporates. It's a parent community. We continue to expand that. In a nation which has 160 million children under the age of 5, at 10,000, we still are solving a small problem. So I think there's tons of scope here, but also looking at doing this internationally, working with the same organizations across the region, looking at saying how the work demographics is changing and how do we adapt our solution to that. So I think it's all work in progress at the moment.
You'd be the apt person to ask this. You're a women entrepreneur yourself. You're solving a problem out there for women. Are there particular challenges? Have things really got better for women entrepreneurs? What has your personal experience really been building Clay as a women entrepreneur?
I don't think there's a challenge in terms of getting access to capital. We've raised enough money through the two investors. I wish there were more women on the other side, right, who understood the woman. The solution that we are providing is largely women-oriented and we work with a ton of women. So it would be nice to see some representation even in the investor community. Outside of that, I think, the problem, at least for me, has not been whether we can get access to meaningful capital.
You continue to be optimistic that way.
Yes, as always. Aren't all entrepreneurs.
Manish, was it a conscious decision to ensure that you do not take money from investors? Were there times that investors came knocking and you had to sort of turn them down because you wanted to focus on the business and you had a steady flow from
money? So it was a conscious effort in the team too, that at that time the business, we really didn't need an investor coming in. We wanted the freedom to learn at our own cost, understand consumers better, and it was more of a question of we just didn't want to get into any of the board games politics too early into the business. And we were hearing about so many startups getting into so many of political reasons, and we didn't want to be one of them. And so these are one of the reasons why we didn't get into institutional investors coming back.
Your message to entrepreneurs building their business, how do they do it bootstrap? How do you stay frugal throughout and ensure that you can build a business successfully?
So I just keep it simple. Business is all about common sense. It's about trying to be tight on your own way how you run your business. Eventually you'll find a way how to be, one is scale as also be profitable at this situation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wishing you the best. Congratulations again. Thanks. Nice meeting you. Manish, congratulations on the award. I know it has sunk in, so I won't ask you the cliched questions. But talk to us about... Well, lots of interesting stories, takeaways from entrepreneurs. They're all the winners from ET Startup Awards 2019. With that, we come to an end to this very special edition of Startup Central. Remember to write to us at suc@etnow.tv, pitch to us, tell us what you want us to cover, what you don't want us to cover. And of course, for all news and updates, continue to keep it with ET Now. Thanks for tuning in.